My dad left me $12 in his will and gave my sister his $800,000 farm because I married outside our religion. My dad died on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. On Thursday morning, his expensive estate lawyer called my phone and plainly said you got exactly $12. That was the entire inheritance. $12. My younger sister got the massive family farm, all the heavy diesel trucks, and the two-story farmhouse I actually grew up in. My name is Caleb. I am 32 years old. I grew up working on a massive corn and soybean farm just outside of Mason City, Iowa. It was 200 acres of flat, rich dirt. My dad was a proud third-generation farmer and a strict senior deacon at our local church. We were not officially Mennonite, but we were incredibly close to it. There was absolutely no drinking, no dancing. Sunday service was mandatory twice a day, and the women were strictly required to wear heavy skirts below the knee. I was the only son, so I was supposed to take over the entire farm. That was the unspoken plan since I was 6 years old, and he first sat me on his lap on the big green tractor. When I was 21 years old, I met Elena at Iowa State. She worked long shifts serving food in the loud dining hall. She is Mexican, deeply Catholic, incredibly loud. She laughs with her entire body, and she has a tiny, colorful tattoo of a hummingbird right on her ankle. My dad met her exactly one time. He stared hard at her skirt that rested just above the knee, looked at the little silver cross necklace resting on her chest, and he pulled me aside right after. She is not of our people, he said coldly. I looked at him and said I really love her. He stared right through me. Then you are completely dead to us, he said. He said it just like that, perfectly calm, exactly like he was just quoting a dry scripture from his pulpit. I went ahead and married Elena when I was 23. We got married fast at the Plain County Courthouse. Absolutely no one from my family came except my older cousin. My mom called me crying hysterically on the phone and said, "Your dad said if we go to your wedding he will leave us forever." My sister, Hannah, who is 2 years younger than me, just sent me a quick text message on the actual day of my wedding that simply read, "You completely betrayed the family." I saw a news story years later about a strict family over in India that literally performed traditional last rites for their living daughter simply because she married outside their specific religion. That is exactly what my family did to me, just in a very quiet, polite Iowa style. They did not light any fires or burn anything in the yard. They just completely erased me. My name stopped being said around the big table at Thanksgiving. My dad actively started telling people in town he only had one child, a daughter. I did not go back to that farm for 9 long years. I just put my head down and built a completely different life. Elena and I packed up and moved down to Des Moines. I started out driving long-haul trucks, then I started getting under the hood and fixing trucks, and then I slowly started my own small fleet that hauls livestock feed. It started with 3 used trucks, then 6, and then it grew to 11. We have a beautiful little girl now named Sophia. She is just turning 4. She has Elena's thick dark hair and my dad's icy blue eyes. I never even bothered to tell my dad she existed. My dad suddenly died of a massive heart attack right out in the middle of the field. He was 67 years old. He was sitting alone up in the cab of his combine when his chest gave out. My mom finally called my cell phone after 2 entire days had passed. "Your father passed away," she said, her voice completely hollow. She told me the funeral is happening tomorrow afternoon. "You can come to the service," she added quietly, "but please just sit way in the back so nobody stares." So I went. I sat in the very back wooden pew with Elena and Sophia. Absolutely no one walked over or spoke a single word to us. My sister Hannah stood up at the front and read a long, crying eulogy about how our dad was a strong man of absolute faith who left a proud family legacy. She did not look at me a single time. The very next day, the estate lawyer called my phone. "Caleb, your dad left you exactly $12, he said reading the paperwork. He said it is sitting here in a small paper envelope. He took a breath and said your sister Hannah gets absolutely everything else. The deed to the farm, the big house, the heavy equipment, and the bank savings. He said it all appraised at roughly $800,000. Elena was standing in our kitchen wiping down the counter when I got off the phone. $12, she asked, looking confused. What does that even mean? I looked at her and said it means my dad wanted to make absolutely sure I knew I was worth nothing to him. In the state of Iowa, there is a legal trick where if you intentionally leave your kid exactly $1, they cannot take you to court and contest the will. It completely proves you did not accidentally forget them. You just deliberately chose to insult them on paper. My dad left me $12. One single dollar for every year I was legally married to Elena. He actually sat down and counted the years just to spite me from the grave. I did not cry at all. I actually laughed out loud in the kitchen. I drove down to the lawyer's office, took the 12 physical dollars, brought them home, and I taped them right to Sophia's pink plastic piggy bank. This is a gift from your grandpa, I told her. Barely a month later, Hannah called my phone completely crying. She had never once cried to me in my entire life. Caleb, the farm is really not what we thought it was, she choked out between sobs. She told me Dad had secretly taken out $310,000 in massive operating loans that he never bothered to tell anyone about. He had a heavy bank lien resting on all the tractors and equipment. He owed serious back taxes for 2 straight years because he stubbornly thought God would just magically provide the money. The bank sat down with her and said if we do not pay $90,000 in cash by December, they will aggressively foreclose on the whole property. I honestly do not know how to run a farm, she panicked. I just work a desk at the bank in town. I have never even driven the combine by myself. I listened to her cry and said, "Why are you calling my phone right now?" "Because you actually know how to run it. You always did," she pleaded. Mom said maybe you could just come up and help us out. I drove my truck up to Mason City that exact weekend without even telling Elena I was going. The huge farm actually looked so much smaller than I remembered it as a kid. The red paint on the big barn was peeling badly in the wind. The corn was completely dead and still standing in the field, way too late in the season. It should have been fully harvested weeks ago. My mom was standing quietly in the kitchen, looking incredibly old and thin. "Caleb," she said softly. She did not step forward or try to hug me. She just crossed her arms and said, "Your sister is just very overwhelmed right now." I walked out alone into the freezing fields. I walked straight into my dad's dusty workshop. His heavy wrenches and tools were hanging exactly where he left them on the pegboard. His worn leather Bible was sitting right there on the wooden workbench. I walked over and opened the cover. He had taken a red pen and underlined a specific verse all about prodigal sons returning home in disgrace. Right next to the margin, he wrote in his own handwriting, "Caleb will return." He honestly thought I would completely fail in the real world. He genuinely thought Elena would eventually leave me, my business would tank, and I would come crawling right back to his doorstep begging for a job on the farm. He left me that $12 as a sick joke, as a cold way to say you will definitely need a lot more than this when you finally come crawling back. I did not come back to that house to save them. I came back to buy them out. I knew a senior guy working over at First AG Bank. He is the exact guy who finances all my big commercial trucks. I called him up and asked him who currently holds the heavy note on my dad's old farm. He checked the system and said, "We do actually." He lowered his voice and said it is officially going to the county auction in January. "Your sister absolutely cannot pay the debt," he added. I had the money sitting in the bank. My trucking company just had an incredibly good year hauling feed. Elena and I had been quietly saving cash for a long time. I easily could have written a check, paid the $90,000, and just let them keep their peaceful lives on the farm. That would definitely be the good, forgiving Christian thing to do. That is exactly what they sat in that farmhouse and expected me to do. Instead, I just waited. I sat in my warm house and let all of December pass by. The bank officially filed the hard foreclosure papers. The entire farm went straight to a public cash auction on January 10th, right inside the old county courthouse. It was snowing heavily outside. There were only 4 local guys sitting in the room to bid. I walked in quietly, wearing my dirty work jacket, and I sat all the way in the back row. Hannah was sitting up near the front with her husband, crying into a tissue. My mom was sitting right next to her holding her hand. They did not even turn around and see me. The fast-talking auctioneer started the bidding at $500,000. The room was dead silent. Absolutely no one bid. He dropped it to $400,000. No one moved a muscle. He dropped it to $380,000, and I calmly raised my hand in the air. I bought my dad's entire 200-acre farm, the exact house I grew up sleeping in, and the big barn where I learned how to swing a hammer, for $380,000. Cash. It was less than half of what the dirt was actually worth simply because the debt scared everyone else away. When the gavel hit the wood, Hannah turned around and completely screamed. "Caleb," she yelled, her voice echoing in the courtroom. She ran down the aisle toward me. "You just bought Dad's farm," she stammered in shock. "You absolutely cannot do this. This is our family farm." I looked right at her wet face. "You got the entire thing for completely free and you just let it die in the dirt," I told her evenly. "I bought it because absolutely no one else in this room wanted it." My mom slowly walked over to me, her hands shaking. "Please, Caleb," she whispered, "where will we even go?" I looked down at her and said, "You can stay living right there in the house. I am not kicking my own mother out into the snow. I am just your landlord now. Your rent is exactly $1 a year, but you will never own it again." I own it. That was my dark revenge, but it was absolutely not the end of the story. I did not keep that massive farm just to go sit on a tractor and farm corn. I do not want to be a corn farmer. I picked up my phone and called Elena's parents all the way down in Guanajuato. Her dad and her hardworking brothers had always dreamed of coming up to work in Iowa, but they could never afford to buy real land. I legally split the farm right down the middle. I kept 40 acres and the main house specifically for my mom to live in. I legally sold the other 160 acres straight to Elena's family for exactly what I paid at the auction, $380,000 divided up, incredibly cheap, on a private contract they can easily afford. They packed up and moved up to the property in March. Her dad actually cried real tears when he walked out and saw the dark soil. He knelt down in the dirt, scooped it up in his rough hands, and just held it. "This is really good soil," he whispered. "Now my strictly religious mom lives alone in the big house where she raised me, but she pays her rent directly to me, a man proudly married to a loud Mexican Catholic woman with a tattoo on her ankle. Every single Sunday afternoon, her brand new neighbors, Elena's family, walk over and bring her warm, fresh tamales. She sits at her table and eats them now. She has to eat them, because they are the absolute only family left around her for miles. My daughter Sophia runs around and plays in the exact same yard where I played as a kid. And she runs through the grass wearing shorts way above the knee. Last week, Hannah angrily drove out to the farm to grab some old boxes of her stuff. She parked her car and stared as she saw Elena's mom out in the yard hanging colorful laundry on the line. Dad would be so incredibly mad if he saw this happening. She snapped at me. I looked at the clothes blowing in the wind. "I know he would," I said. "He purposefully left me $12 because he honestly thought I was entirely worthless. I used his $12 as my first down payment. I had taken those $12 off Sophia's plastic piggy bank last month. I put the bills inside a nice glass frame. I drove out and hung the frame right on the wall inside the barn office, right next to my dad's dusty Bible. Under the frame, I took a black marker and wrote, 'This is exactly what my father thought I was worth.' Right above it, I wrote, 'This is what I did with it.' My mom still drives into town and goes to her strict church twice every single Sunday. She sits all the way in the back pew now, entirely alone, because all the people in the congregation talk about her. They constantly whisper that her disgraced son bought her farm at auction and gave all the good land away to a bunch of Mexicans. She called me last Sunday after service. 'Your dad would absolutely hate this,' she whispered into the phone. 'I know he would, Mom,' I said quietly. 'That is exactly why I did it.